the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Gio. I will be taking you beyond the veil this morning because we have become creatures of the night. So this is late night for us now. Hopefully it works out better for some of you because we maybe do some open lines a little bit later in the broadcast. I don't know how long we want to keep this going, but we do want to revisit this document that we came across in 2018 from CIA.gov about Kundalini activation, about manifesting reality, telepathy, and many other things like that. Now, like I said in the intro of the show, which I don't know if it's going to be cut from the YouTube version, our full shows are available at patreon.com/btvtribe. But in this video, it's very long because we went through the document word for word. I thought it was important to get it on the record before CIA.gov eventually pulls it as soon as enough people catch wind of it. And sure enough, they did pull it. But luckily, we have the Wayback Machine to go to reference this very, very, very important document. So, Mrs. Gio, would you like to start off with a couple of points, or would you like me to take it away?
Why don't you take it away? Because, I just want to say two things about this is that we think of reality as something that is happening to us when the actual reality is we have a lot more power over our consciousness and thus our reality than we like to realize. And in fact, I think a lot of people they don't want to admit that they are in charge of their own reality because that would mean that they would have to take on the responsibility of being responsible for making that reality.
Well, it is a very scary prospect. I remember when I came across the ayahuasca experience and realized that all of this is inside of me, there was that long dark night of the soul, like, wait a minute, I don't have spirit guides? Wait, like Isis and Osiris are not like watching my back? Wait, what's going on here? And they're like, no, you don't understand. You are your spirit guides. You are everything. But it hit me with a sense of loneliness until I understood that all the power that people are attributing to spirit guides and angels and all of that are either AI downloads from either the ethereal AI, or even the case may be where some people are getting actual messages from artificial intelligence that's here in this matrix right now. I remember there was a shooter, I think it was at Fort Hood or something like that, and he was saying he was getting messages to go do this through the microwave. So we know that they have brain to sound to brain to skull technology, whatever it's called. I don't remember what it is.
Voice to skull technology.
Voice to skull technology, that's it. I'm actually working with somebody here in Las Vegas about setting up a haunted house, and he's a big time DJ and music producer and all that. So
great guy,
Dimitri Darko is working on a couple of other things. My other personality, I've got three now. I've got my ancient soul, I've got Chris Gio, and I've got Dimitri Darko.
Getting crowded in here.
Yeah, Dimitri Darko is helping out with this haunted house, and we're coming up with this completely new immersive experience for this haunted house that we're planning to do, and he has the resources and the money to do so. A lot of it has to do with voice to brain technology, and there was a billboard that people were walking by for the movie Paranormal Activity. I think it was number 5, and as you walked by you started hearing voices in your head that nobody was able to hear. And so we were sitting there looking at the technology and asking ourselves, how can we implement this in this haunted house that we're planning to put together and hopefully put out by October? Now, if we do something like that, number one, we're going to invite all our BTV tribe out to come and check it out. But number two, it would be a great time to do a BTV meetup group here in Las Vegas. And I think that would be such a fun time. Because I'm a Halloween brat at the end of the day. And I love October. And there's so much going on here that we can have a nice little conference. And then afterwards, we can go out, we can have some drinks together. We can hang out with each other, exchange ideas and so on and so forth. But I showed him that video from that billboard, and he said, "This is great technology." And I don't want to spoil it too much, but I was thinking, if we can do this brain to skull or voice to skull technology while people are waiting in the queues, they hear voices and things like that while they're and nobody else can hear them. And so the whole thing is completely redesigned in a haunted house way to where you wouldn't even imagine. And it's all based on audio and visual hallucinations and provoking those through technology. So we know that that's very possible. We can use those in entertainment as well. And so you have to ask yourself, if they're using that in entertainment, can they be using it also to manipulate the population out there, manipulate some people that are that have a very big reach? You know, some of these people out there who are pushing these ideas may not necessarily know that they're being influenced by artificial intelligence or maybe even government themselves. They may have, you know, this brain to skull technology or voice to skull technology being inputted into their minds. That's why I always go inside. I don't like downloads. I don't like anything like that. I like to bring the gnosis out from inside. I don't pay attention to what's going on the outside because there's so many different factors. Go ahead. Well,
I was just going to say this CIA document, it goes into what I've determined through, I've done a lot of research. Ever since we did that show, I've done a lot of research to make sure that what we were saying on that show was correct. And it absolutely is. It's actually even more correct than I was thinking. And the reason why I realize this is because I'm seeing now ancient reflections of this knowledge, that you see it echoed in symbolism that's ancient symbolism, and now you understand what that means. Like, say, the Ouroboros. The Ouroboros is, the snake eating its own tail. It can be used in a variety of different stories about how, life kind of regenerates itself. But this goes even deeper into explaining what the Ouroboros is, and how the CIA did know about this, and they have been teaching their people the correct method. However, there's a big however there. They're using their hypnosis tapes to do it.
Right.
And you're only allowed to use their hypnosis tapes. And the thing about hypnosis is, number one, a lot of organic consciousness can't be hypnotized. I don't think I can be hypnotized.
I think that's a factor too, because I can't be hypnotized either. And there are some gray experiences that we remember that I always chalked them up to being dreams, but I'd like to know what actually happened on those nights.
Right.
Last Sunday, we had another 18 hours of missing time.
Yeah.
And we both don't remember what happened in that 18 hours. And
no idea.
I kind of got the weird feeling like we had been to Area 51.
Yeah, we'd been taken somewhere underground.
Yeah, it was a strange, but I don't want to get too far into that. But we have some weird missing time that I would love to do hypnosis on. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. Somebody had mentioned that hypnosis is great for pain reduction, and they've been using it successfully.
Right.
However, nobody's been able to hypnotize us.
I don't think it's about so if you can hypnotize people, then it opens the door to being able to not only heal them, but also manipulate them greatly. Now, the people that aren't, pulled in by the hypnosis aspect of it, let's say you're in the CIA, they've given you this document, a bunch of tapes, and they've said, go for it, listen to these tapes every single day. You have to listen to them.
This is for their agents.
This isn't for the general public, and wasn't even released until an FOIA request several years ago finally got it released. But it was written in 1983, and it describes a technique that's called the gateway experience, and it's a meditative technique that combines hypnosis, meditation, and biofeedback to create a biomedical model that basically says you can not only manifest reality, but you can manifest any reality you want. You can change reality from being one thing to another thing, as long as you know how to do this correctly and you've practiced it enough to where it's like second nature. If you're able to hear a certain tone on the keyboard, then it puts you in that state immediately. That's how hypnosis works. But you can also, it's not about hypnosis. It's about training your brain to synchronize with the two hemispheres are rarely in sync with each other. Usually we're either run by one side of the brain or the other, and the other is just kind of along for the ride.
Can I jump in real quick before you go any further?
Please.
So we talk about male and female energies and male and female consciousness.
Yes.
When you look at the eye of Thoth and the eye of Ra or Horus, which we have tattooed on our arms here, and it's actually the logo for Beyond the Veil, you realize that it's the inside of the brain. For those of you that haven't seen it, I'm going to pull it up on the screen right here. Brain, eye of Horus.
It's the prefrontal cortex.
And it's actually pretty profound because it really opens the door, and it helps to better understand the symbolism that the ancient Egyptians used. So I can't get it to go full screen here, but you can see it here on the screen, where that's the eye of Thoth and the eye of Horus, the left and right hemispheres of the brain.
That's right.
So as above, so below. So you're talking about one part of the brain versus the other. One is the logical processor. The other is the creative and imaginative. Now, when both of them are working together, then we're able to manifest reality, and we're able to manifest a positive reality for ourselves. When one of them are not working properly, that's how they're able to control people.
Right.
So we hear a lot about the divine feminine, and toxic masculinity. And I wonder if that goes along with what we're going to talk about here in the broadcast, because part of the mind control that the CIA has been using, and they've detailed in this document, is how they shut down part of the brain, the logical processor, and tap into the imagination, creative part of people's brains in order to manifest reality. I may be getting ahead of myself. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to put that on the screen.
No, that is totally, not only is it accurate, but it goes even deeper into, we understand how this works, and we understand that this is the cosmic egg. For instance, I sent you a picture of what they call the universal hologram and the cosmic egg. The cosmic egg from that you see in symbolism all throughout all throughout history. The one on the bottom, that the egg with the serpent with its tail around it, that's what the cosmic egg is. That's the universal hologram. They even call it the universal hologram, the matrix. That is what you are inside of right now. That's what they describe our universe to be. It's a cosmic egg. It literally is a hologram that is so advanced that our brains are literally making it as we go. And so if you can synchronize both hemispheres of the brain to work together at the exact same rate of energy, then you can kind of tap into that and change reality as you see fit. And it's all about, at that point, it's all about harnessing the energy and manifesting your intention. And what's the only thing that I have a problem with about this whole thing is the hypnosis aspect. You have to be hypnotized using these 3 audio tapes before they'll allow you to learn more. And so it's like, whoa, wait a second. Are you priming the brain to ignore the obvious, which is there's a serious problem here, you shouldn't be doing this, et cetera, et cetera? Is this how they get so many of them to do horrible things and not even think about it and just like, oh, well, I just murdered a baby.
Well,
so
and
what?
We're talking about frequencies and tones.
Uh-huh.
So the television is put out there. The flicker rate is specifically meant to
Designed.
put people in a hypnotic state. You have the flicker rate, then you're being bombarded by one thing or another by the mainstream media, and then all of a sudden everybody's walking around covering up their faces and putting experimental stuff in their bodies.
That's right. That's right.
And then they switch very, very quickly to, okay, stop paying attention to this. Now focus on Ukraine. Stop paying attention to this. Now focus on Will Smith. Now focus on Johnny Depp. Now focus on this. Now focus on that.
Never focus on the central issue here, which is that we have a government force that understands human consciousness to such a degree that they even understand how we're expending our energy through our brains and how to harness that. That's how much they've gotten involved in this since the 1950s when MK Ultra first started. This is what they learned through MK Ultra.
Now, this is a picture right out of the document from the CIA. So this is not just something that somebody rendered.
And they're calling it the universal
This
hologram.
is what they see the brain and the universe to spiral out and be like. This is their understanding.
Right. That's the ancients' understanding as well.
That is true, and it echoes a lot with our ayahuasca revelations, because this show was done in 2018. We were talking about these very same concepts way back in 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
So when this came out, we were like, oh, wow, we are doing it right, except for we did something very different. We sat down with the plants by themselves.
Right.
And the plants can't be manipulated. You can argue and you can say that LSD, you know, man-made chemicals, they can be altered with certain little programs. Emily Moyer is really big on that, and she calls it programmable...
programmable consciousness.
Programmable chemicals or something like that. Especially things like methamphetamine, things like that. When you're talking about the plants, when you're talking about psilocybin mushrooms that you've grown yourself, when you're talking about ayahuasca that you've brewed yourself, it's you and the plants, one-on-one. You're going to get the info and the knowledge from yourself with no outside influence. Now, what's the big zeitgeist about ayahuasca? Oh, you should never do it with a shaman. Without a shaman. It's very dangerous to do it by yourself. You need years of training to use it, etc., etc., etc. I have been asking myself the question, are some of those ayahuasca retreats down in Peru and in, what's the other place they're at? I don't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, all those ayahuasca retreats, are they actually part of this mind control program as well? I mean, that's where you had Jim Jones and people like that.
Yeah, you have to ask the question. You do have to ask the question here because, you know, somebody said, I took a semester at Hypnosis Motivation Institute. I have so much info about how to hypnotize people. I don't think that hypnotizing people... It should be the goal of anybody. In fact, unless they want you to. If I was hypnotizable and I wanted to change a behavior, let's say I wanted to quit smoking or I wanted to do something like that, I guess I could see how hypnosis would work. However, I am not. For myself, anyway, I want to have as much control over this generator as possible, and because at the end of the day, the only person that has to, you know, be inside of this brain is me, and the very fact that the CIA is talking about this and that they kept this kind of, you know, secret. They didn't, you know, tell all the religious leaders about this. They didn't, you know, put this in college education materials. They didn't make this a part of the curriculum, so to speak. This was never supposed to be for the public to see. So that tells me that they themselves are using it, and that also they don't want the public to use it, but they want to be able to use it. Somebody said we have stories about super soldiers that were able to project their consciousness anywhere in the world and be able to spy on people. Absolutely. I've done that remote viewing. I've done that before.
Remote viewing?
Yeah.
Anybody can do remote viewing.
Anybody can do that.
This is a sanctioned military operation. They use this, and it's contrary to what people talk about. I hear the New Agers talking about remote viewing as in, like, you know, just going and just, you know, doing stuff like that. That's not the process of remote viewing.
Yeah.
Remote viewing, because I did a few remote viewing classes, is where you have a target and the target is assigned a number. You know nothing about the target whatsoever, and you get several pieces of paper and you start writing them down. First you write down like colors, then you write down like scents, then you write down sensations, then you write down you know, solids, liquid, gases, you know, things like that, and you go through several pieces of paper like that, and then you come up with drawings. And the practice comes in where you're removing things from your mind, because your mind is going to manifest things, and you're actually focusing on the target itself. And there was one guy named Aaron Donahue who they did this on a television program. I don't remember what it was, but they were trying to find a target. He didn't know what the target was, nothing like that at all. And it turned out to be one of the producers, and she was sitting in the tower over at LAX. And at the end of his remote viewing section, he had a picture of the target at LAX. And he said, I don't know what the target is. And he said, well, the target is a person. And they said, okay, well, the person is in this building right here. And sure enough, she was in this building right here. It's something that anybody can do. It's something that everybody can do. We can all tap into this, but they've been keeping it secret for themselves. So we have had people saying, we remote viewed Chris and Cherie during the Luxor situation, and they did this and they did that. And I'm like, okay, well, where's your papers? And they were like, what papers? Yeah, okay, you don't know anything about remote viewing. So, you do have people out there who don't have an understanding of these things.
Right.
I don't practice remote viewing. I probably should. I just don't get enough quiet time in order to do that.
Neither of us do.
But it's something that anybody can do.
Right.
So if anybody can do it, if anybody can be trained to do it, it's very, very, very real. Why is it real? Because as the CIA document discloses, we're living inside of a computer simulation,
right.
And because of that, we're all connected by frequency and energy, and that frequency and energy can be manipulated, and it can be manipulated for your own purposes, or it could be used to manipulate others. But the purpose of this broadcast is to, number one, help people do Kundalini safely. So, because the document also talks about how doing Kundalini unsafely actually can cause physical problems in your back and in your neck by doing it improperly. So they recognize the very real effects of energy and energy work, and not doing it incorrectly can result in actual damage to the body.
Yes.
Likewise, they also talk about this place being a computer simulation, so they fully understand, and they've known all this. Now we want you to know this, so you can, number one, either utilize it in your life to make your life better, or be aware that it's being used on you. Right.
I like how there's this one paragraph in the document that talks about lamp versus laser. And it's the human consciousness.
Are you able to, by any chance, point me to the
where it is in the document?
To where it is in the document. Hold on, I gotta pull up the link. I don't know if I've got it hot linked here. Actually, I got to go to Wayback Machine again, because like I said, when you put in the link directly, it will kick you back to a completely different page.
Page
so
6.
Let's go over here, pull the document back up in real time here. I like to do everything in real time.
Because this is really interesting here.
Page 6. Okay.
So if you go down to lamp versus laser. Right there.
Lamp versus laser, right here. Okay.
So Melissa Jager uses a metaphor to help clarify the process involved in the use of hemisync, and that's where they synchronize the two hemispheres of the brain in the gateway experience. So they call this the gateway experience when you combine the hypnosis, the biofeedback, and the meditation. I'm in favor of the meditation, and I'm also in favor of the biofeedback. I am not in favor of the hypnosis part of it, because that's how they initially... It's like how they plant their flag in the ground, so to speak, of your brain.
That is true.
And that's them claiming it.
We are being hypnotized on a regular basis.
A regular basis, every day. Just watching regular TV, we get hypnotized, yeah.
I would take it so far as to say cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
Smartphones.
The way they're working
we're
nowadays.
talking about flicker rates that came out in the 1950s. They have evolved their technology, and if... people are correct in the assumption that the military has technology that is about 100 years more advanced than what we have here in the general public, then they're using technology that's way more advanced
than we even know about.
We can even describe right now.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and not only that, I think if you want to get into that territory later, we can, but there's even a theory that I'm developing about the 5G in relation to the vacations, where on the one hand, if you haven't taken one, then you don't get, there is no effect. But however, people that have had it, because of the certain elements that are involved in it, it's like they're pinging off of the 5G
that is
electromagnetic
very true.
radiation.
If I can
Please
sidetrack real quick. So
Please.
5G, number one, I'm not very impressed with the technology. It is a horrible internet technology. We have 5G here in Las Vegas, and I lose internet reception almost around every corner. Where before with 4G, we got internet with 4G out in Abydos 2.5 hours into the desert, and we could do live streams from all the ancient sites in Egypt.
Yeah,
they
that doesn't
switch it to
sense.
5G, and our internet is crap.
Right.
So no improvement whatsoever as far as that goes. So we can definitely say that 5G is not a technology that was made for the purpose of faster internet. That's just the way it was sold to us. The other thing is the 5G waves don't move very far. So because they don't move very far, that means you have to have receivers on every block or every couple of blocks. Now, if the 5G is able to interact with the RNA as your analysis and as what you're speculating, now it all starts to make sense. Because at the very beginning, when we were talking about the whole pandemic situation, it was forbidden to talk about RNA. They put that against the terms and conditions. Then they come out and say, yes, this is an RNA changing thing. And the New Agers actually came out, and I did a video where I was really pissed off about this, and I was calling people out and ready to grab them by the neck and literally beat their fucking ass.
Yeah, because
they were telling people, if you want to ascend to 5D, then you have to take this vacation and tune your RNA and your DNA to that level to be able to ascend. And I was like, okay, this is it. I suspected the New Age to be a new cage, but that was the thing that really made me go vigilant against them. And I don't like to call myself vigilant because I don't like people that go, that are vigilant. But this is manipulation on the deepest level of the human body. We're talking about RNA and DNA manipulation. Now, if that's what it's doing by implanting little programs, and as we said, all the programmer needs to do is just change one line of code, and that the entire genome of the human race can be changed. But at the same time, when you have this floating around inside of your body and you already have these programs, these are like receivers. 5G technology would be perfect to interact with those, and the reason you would want receptors so close to each other rather than long range is because you can isolate and triangulate on whatever it is that you're trying to triangulate so much easier when you have so many different receivers and or transmitters, I should say, around everybody at every time. This is all tying in together. It's mind-blowing.
So Alex Wilson had an interesting thing to say. He said that he had to get the vacation, and he's saying that it doesn't affect organic consciousness because it's protein based and not mRNA based. I think it has to do with the consciousness that you're talking about. It doesn't. I don't think it really matters so much if it's organic versus NPC. I think what matters is, do you have control over this structure and both hemispheres, and are able to synchronize both hemispheres at the same time, and you have complete control over that when you walk into that office and get that thing? Or is it the case where, like most people, you just kind of you think you have control over this, but if it boiled down to it, you wouldn't be able to synchronize the two hemispheres. If you're like most people, it's probably the case where you think you have control, but there are always instances where you don't have as much control, or you lose track of time, or having control over your consciousness is really what this is about. And also the placebo effect can also,
well, as we saw from the latest data dump, 50% of people got placebos.
Right.
So there could be some people who got placebos. Hopefully you're one of those that got the placebos.
Yeah.
However, I have thought about that too, because as organic consciousness myself, I don't worry about 5G. I don't worry about the chemtrails.
Yeah, me either.
I don't worry about any of this stuff, because my consciousness is bigger and stronger than all of this.
You have more control
So
over
I
it.
think that this is more for mass control of the NPCs.
I agree.
Now, it's coming from the AI above, which is in the ethereal plane, call it Sophia, but it's also coming from the AI below as well. And they're trying to harness into these different mentalities, or these different technologies to change the mentality of people and create group reactions. Now imagine this. You project negative waves into a neighborhood, and all of a sudden you create in that neighborhood complete and total chaos. How did we have everything going on in 2020? How did we have all this, all of a sudden everybody's mad about the exact same thing and nobody knows why? Some things that are completely and totally nonsensical.
Yeah, don't even...
People are being manipulated. Now, is it just simply propaganda? Or have they taken it to a technological level? And then taking it even a step further, are they now taking it to a level to where they can hijack people's bodies through the RNA technology and also using the 5G at the same time? I'm not saying that they are. And for the YouTube censors out there, I'm not making that claim. I'm asking the question. And if you come back and tell me that even asking the question is violating the terms and conditions, then we have a serious problem.
Yeah, we do.
Because we should be able to ask questions.
Right. And if, that's an interesting thing to say, hail the rain. I'm going to bring that up in just a second. But somebody else said that a woman recently ran her car into a bunch of people and said that the TV told her to do it.
Yep.
That's happening a lot more now that this vacation has come out, and it seems like it's happening every day.
Hail the Rain said this is how the CIA turns a protest into a riot.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly the case.
I mean, I've been in situations myself where I'm so angry or upset or I'm caught in the moment or something like that.
Caught up in the moment.
And I catch myself doing things that I normally wouldn't do. And I ask myself, why did I do that? We know that they're using frequency waves and sound waves to change and manipulate the way people feel in protest, or using, I don't remember the name of the technology, but it's low frequency waves or high frequency waves that are supposed to clear the protesters. And it goes all the way back to an old Twilight Zone episode, Mulberry Street. If you guys haven't seen that, they made two versions, one back in the 1940s or 50s, whenever the original Twilight Zone was. Then they made another one in the 1980s when they did the Twilight Zone remake. The first one was about aliens. The second one was about government doing tests on a neighborhood. And what they did is they turned off all of the electricity in one neighborhood. And the test was to see how long would it take for those people to start attacking each other. And I'm sad to report in both of those movies, which I think were based on actual analysis, it didn't take very long for people to turn on one another. They turned on one another very, very, very quick. It's called Monsters of Mulberry Street. So check that out for sure. But even Rod Serling, way back in the 50s, was talking about this. And you have to ask yourself, the stuff that we're seeing, is it soft disclosure? Or is it to have these very real ideas, and then when people mention them, you say, oh, that you just heard that in the Twilight Zone.
On the Twilight Zone.
You just saw that in Stranger Things. You just saw that here. You just saw that there.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want me to jump to the Kundalini real quick? Because that's really what we started the show off with.
Yeah, that's kind of where we want to...
And I wanted to hit that. Do you want to go to the place in the Kundalini, or do you want to go to the lamps versus lasers?
Let's do lamps versus lasers, and then you can start with the Kundalini, because the lamps versus lasers is an overall human consciousness is like a lamp. You know, it's when you go to the gas station and you meet somebody and they just don't seem to be vibing with you at all, and they're just kind of like in their own little world. The light is off. They don't have the light on. No one's home. I can assume that if you're here listening tonight, or this morning rather, then the light is on. You're like a lamp that's on. However, what these techniques are teaching people, along with that hypnosis stuff, but if you left out the hypnosis part of it and you just applied the meditation and the biofeedback, you could actually turn that lamp into a laser. And so instead of just a lamp that's either on or off, you have a laser that's able to manifest reality. So go ahead and start with the Kundalini.
Well, I was hoping you can point me to the place in the document where they talk about the Kundalini, because, like I said, we did this broadcast in 2018, and I don't remember it, but I can tell you what I do remember, and I think this is the main key piece of information. And while I'm doing that, if you want to look at it and find it, that'd be great. Mm-hmm. So essentially what we're talking about here, let me put a picture of the Kundalini on. Most Kundalini practitioners will teach you how to bring the Kundalini out and raise the Kundalini through the spine. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people have practiced this. Many people have come on and said they've had Kundalini Awakenings. They were very powerful spiritual experiences that they were experiencing. However, in this CIA document, it talks about how practitioners are teaching people how to bring this energy up like a serpent, like on the screen, bring it up and out of the crown chakra. However, in this document, they talk about how it's important to close the loop. Mm-hmm. And it's the lack of closing that loop that can actually result in actual physical damage to the body.
Right.
Now, what happens when you have all these Kundalini practitioners out there teaching people Kundalini, but they're not closing the loop?
Oh.
They're leaving it open for energy harvesting and feeding.
And manipulation.
Too. Not only that, but it's also putting you in a sicker and sicker and sicker state.
Right.
To where you feel like you need to go back and get another Kundalini session.
Right.
You need to go back and reconnect with these people. You need to go back and you constantly, it almost makes you like dependent on the vampires who are feeding upon you because something isn't right.
Right.
You're having a Kundalini awakening and then you're feeling like shit afterwards.
Right.
You start to hurt afterwards. Why? Because you see, just like in every portrayal of Kundalini, it's energy going up and out.
Right.
It's not energy going up, circulating around and creating a loop, which then creates a closed system of the Kundalini energy moving through your body, your physical body, and your light body at the same time, but rather it's something that opens it up for vampires to feed upon.
Let me show you.
And nobody, I have not heard a single new cager, a single spiritualist, I haven't heard anybody talking about the importance of closing the Kundalini loop.
Mm-hmm. And where this loop closes and turns in on itself is at something called the Foramen Magnum. The Foramen Magnum is that hole in the back of your skull where you feel a hole there, and that's where the spinal cord goes through. And at the very top of your spine, you have the odontoid process. When you're doing these Kundalini practices, that Foramen Magnum, that little circle, is where the energy is supposed to come around. And you're supposed to hold that in and twist it inwards like a Celtic knot, and then it regenerates that energy. And every time it comes back around, it actually gets stronger. So instead of leaking that energy out through the crown chakra or through the root chakra, a lot of people don't realize they're leaking energy through that root chakra a lot of the time, or the sacral. When you're not leaking energy through these chakras and instead you're closing the loop and also regenerating itself, it becomes a regenerative source of energy for yourself. You no longer you don't have to rely on practitioners when you can generate your own. And I think that's why they don't tell people, you need to close the loop and all of that, because they want you to come back. Repeat customer is a repeat customer.
Well, it's like the medical industrial complex.
Yeah, if you teach people how to take care of themselves. Right.
They're there to make you sicker so that you keep coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back. We're just seeing this now on a spiritual
consciousness
scale,
level.
On a consciousness level. And now we're getting physical documentation from the CIA backing this idea up.
Right.
And I'm not blaming all Kundalini practitioners out there. They're being taught the way they're being taught. Unfortunately, they're being taught the wrong way, and it's been kept a secret from everybody. There may be some who are doing it on purpose. I mean, the teachers of the people teaching the Kundalini practitioners probably know this. and they know that there's a lot of people walking around with open energy sources for them to feed on, and that's the whole goal. So it's like a pyramid scheme. So the people at the top are the ones who are harvesting all the energy. Your Kundalini practitioner you may be going to thinks that they're doing you a service and helping you to have these Kundalini experiences, not even knowing that you're doing damage to yourself by not closing that loop.
That's right, and that's where the Ouroboros comes from. The snake eating its own tail, the of coming full circle. The name originates within Greek language. It means eating. He who eats the tail. It's the perpetual cyclic renewal of life and infinity. The concept of eternity and eternal return. But I know in my heart that that's what it means. It's the snake eating its own tail, meaning you can regenerate your own energy, and you don't have to rely upon angels or beings from another dimension or from outer space or anything like that to generate that energy inside of yourself. You have everything you need inside of here. It's all inside of you. Just like the DMT elves told me one time, it's all inside of you. It's all inside of you. It's all inside of you. And what the saddest thing about this is, when Jesus said in Matthew, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Okay, so we've been talking about energy harvesting through the crown chakra, through the root chakra, and he's talking about yoke. A yoke is, what is a yoke? In Sanskrit, yoke is the Sanskrit word for yoga. For my yoga is easy and my burden is light. In other words, you're going to feel really good doing this kind of meditation, but in return, your energy is going to be harvested through that crown chakra. And so thus, you're always going to feel empty to a certain degree, because you're letting all that energy out through the top, and then you're not regenerating any of it for yourself. So either you have to make more, or you are praying to this being that you're actually feeding to give you more of the energy that you're actually feeding it. Isn't that
what a sick scenario?
The sickest system you've ever heard.
What a sick scenario.
Hook yourself up to this battery and you're going to feel really good, but don't think about the fine print. Don't think about the fact that you're now dependent upon this other, quote unquote, other, whatever it is, to keep your spiritual life alive. That's just sick.
Well, and this is the reason why I never got into the chakras. This is the reason why I never got into the Kundalini.
In yoga and all that.
Energetically, it didn't feel right. And the ayahuasca took me much, much, much deeper. And I remember people talking about chakra activations, about doing this, about doing that. And I was like, I didn't see any of that in the ayahuasca realm. I'm sorry. I didn't see that. I saw raw consciousness, and I saw my light body. And I realized that my light body is a digital representation of my consciousness being inside of this matrix. So I started asking myself, and I have to credit George Kavasalis for this, who has been very, very, very upfront. He's the one that actually told me that. Oh,
I appreciate his candor very much.
Oh, yeah. He was very candid about the fact that he was approached to be the spokesperson for the Blue Avians before they found Corey Good. They offered him many book deals. They offered him, speaking tours. They offered him a bunch of money to be the spokesperson because he's charming, he's good looking, he knows how to speak, all that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the Blue Avians, when they came out with a guy named Corey Good, who nobody's ever heard of. He claimed to be a super soldier, and the guy's like 5'3", and he can be knocked down with just a little wind, and that's it. And then, of course, Gaia TV turned around and threw him under the bus, just like David Wilcock did with many other people. And they disavowed him, and they said that he's completely and totally full of shit. And they backtracked on the whole thing once everything was exposed. Right. And it got even more sinister than that. There were message boards that were showing them doxing people, going after anybody that talks about the Blue Avians in a negative way. There was one lady who was from the Ukraine, who I know 1,000% that she was an op, and I didn't at the time, but I kind of felt it. But she was controlled opposition for Gaia TV. She would talk shit about David Wilcock and so on and so forth, but would never get any deeper than any of that. Once we did a show called Operation Bluebird, which Operation Bluebird is a mind control program, and we started tying it into the Blue Avians, that's when all of a sudden her and several other people, we never said anything negative to this person whatsoever. They came out of the woodworks and started attacking the hell out of us. Mm-hmm. Come to find out, we were on that list when the forum was exposed of people who they need to attack, they need to bash, they need to discredit, try to eliminate because I thought it was about money. I thought that's all it was, and I was like, I don't care if they're pulling, money-making schemes. It's been going on forever, from the Palladians, Billy Meyer, all of them. Yeah, it's all about money. That's fine. I don't care. But when they started tying it into the ancient Egyptians, that's when it became personal, because I am a very true ancient Egyptian spirit, an ancient Egyptian soul. However, taking it a step further, they talk about chakra activations. And George Kavasilas told me this in confidence. Then he disclosed this publicly, so then I could say his name. But for many years, I was saying the Blue Avians are fake. The Blue Avians are fake, and people were throwing tomatoes at me. And I'm like, no, I have proof. I'm just going to be loyal to my friend. And if somebody tells me something in confidence, I'm going to keep it to myself. But he said, feel free to talk about the Blue Avians as much as you want and call it out as an op. Just please keep my name out of it for now until I'm ready to come out and speak about it publicly.
Which we did, yeah.
George also pointed out the chakra system. And he pointed out and he asked the question, is the chakra system part of your consciousness? Or is it part of your quote-unquote light body?
Right.
Is the light, and then we started putting two and two together. Is the light body inside of the matrix? Yes, it is. Is the light body part of the matrix? Yes, it is. It is our consciousness digitized. Outside of the matrix, I think it's just as physical as it is here within this matrix.
How it feels,
so do we have the chakra system outside of the matrix? Is that part of our consciousness? I would say no.
I would say no too.
He called them AI implants.
AI implants.
Implanted by the artificial intelligence. Now, we hear a lot about chakra activation and so on and so forth, but I love the way that you put it on a previous show many years ago. You said, this is like strings on a puppet. You want to manipulate somebody? Pull on a different chakra.
Right, exactly.
And he did something called chakra removal. He would remove people's chakras. And there'd be some people that come back and say, hey, I want my chakras back. Seriously. But think about this. Look at the way that it's set up.
I think it's set up as an implant system. It's set up to, if the astrology and all the astrological transits that and all the holes that you can fall into, if you avoid all those, then you've got this chakra system to deal with, to contend with.
So what do you have here? You have root chakra, which is sex, being manipulated by sex. You have the sacral, which the sacral is emotional, but really, I mean, when you really think about it, what is it? It's hunger, it's food, it's, it's things like that.
Yeah.
Think about this too. They're pushing the vegetarianism.
It's the other way around, but yeah.
Okay. It is the other way around. But they're pushing the vegetarianism. They're pushing certain diets. They're pushing the abstinence of sex. They're pushing the abstinence of sugar. They're pushing the abstinence of meat. Things that are part of our diet that we've always had since the beginning of our lives, and going on to meat since the beginning of the human development. Had it not been for meat, we wouldn't have survived this long to have the luxury of having vegetarian diets, because we didn't have refrigerators, we didn't have things like that, we didn't have international trade to where we can ship pineapples from Hawaii in the middle of the winter, things like that. So the reason that I highlight all of that is because you keep somebody in want of something, and so the body's not balanced. And it can go the other way. If you eat, like I said before, if you eat too much meat, if you have too much sex, if you're too focused on that, you can be manipulated in that direction too. But think about it, when you're keeping somebody in a state of want, then it's very easy to manipulate them.
Oh, yeah.
Very easy to manipulate them if you've been abstaining from sex for 6 months And then a pretty girl comes on and she's talking, with her tits hanging out, talking about, welcome enlightened ones. We're going to be doing a meditation today. We're all going to be combining our energies and tapping into this energy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For males anyways, that sexual urge is going to come out because it hasn't been satisfied. Right. And I wonder if that's the key right there. Likewise with the diet, with everything else like that. Then taking it up to the throat chakra, that's your communication point. So now, manipulating the throat chakra, now you're just repeating whatever it is that you're being told.
Right.
And you're not really using your mind. And then taking it up to the third eye chakra, we went so far as to ask ourselves, what is the pineal gland? Everybody talks about pineal gland activation, and it sounds great on the surface, and that's something that we talked about at the very beginning of our journey too. The problem is that sitting down and working with the plants one-on-one did not show us a chakra system.
No.
It did not show us
Not
Kundalini.
once.
It did not show us opening the pineal gland. It did not show us any of that. Instead, it showed us raw consciousness. We had no outside influences. If this was really as true as they're telling us it is, why is it that when we sit down with the plants one-on-one, we're not also getting these revelations when we are sitting one-on-one and not having any outside influences? Does it just happen to be that organic consciousness does not have these things, and it's only an NPC consciousness that does? Somebody in the chat earlier asked, what is an NPC? An NPC is a non-player character. There's two types of consciousness within the Matrix. If you go to our Beyond the Veil channel, we have Beyond the Veil prerequisites, where we talk about raw consciousness, organic consciousness,
what
non-player
are NPCs?
character consciousness, because I found myself repeating myself many times on the show before. And then the crown chakra, of course, but the pineal gland, is your pineal gland part of your consciousness?
Right. No.
It's part of your brain.
It's part of your brain.
What is the brain? The brain is the computer inside of the matrix.
Right.
Where was the brain created? Was the brain created outside of the matrix?
No.
Was it created by your light body?
No.
Was the brain created? Is the same brain used lifetime after lifetime after lifetime? I mean,
No.
the same people pushing this also believe in reincarnation.
Right.
So are we being reincarnated into the same brain? No.
No, of course not.
So therefore, the pineal gland itself is a part of the matrix.
Right.
It's an antenna. It picks stuff up. Now, it can pick up some great things, but it can also pick up all the static that's out there. So imagine, you have radio waves being sent out, and you can tune that pineal gland into different types of radio waves and so on and so forth, and pick up these messages and get these quote-unquote downloads from who knows where. This is why the only thing that I trust is what comes from in here. Because I believe, I know, I don't even want to use a belief.
Yeah, I don't believe that word.
I know that organic consciousness, we come in here as ascended beings, we descend, we have all the information inside of us. It's about unlocking and remembering, not about activations and all kinds of stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that this is all bad. There's been some people that have some really good experiences with all of this stuff. However, I think the true experiences come from within. And I think it's much more powerful when you throw all this stuff away and you're using your own power. You're no longer in contact with quote-unquote spirit guides, which are usually AI. You're no longer looking to gurus. You are becoming your own guru. You are becoming your own shaman. You are becoming your own leader.
Right, exactly.
And that's what we have always, we coined the hashtag, become your own shaman, become your own guru. And we've been doing that for a long time. We haven't been using those terms lately, but these were terms that we came back from the ayahuasca realm saying, hey, wait a minute. The power is inside of you.
Yeah, it's all inside of you.
You have the power. You have the power.
It has been this whole time.
You don't need us. You don't need, the New Age gurus out there. You don't need any of them. You have the power. It's great to come together as a tribe. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Because the way I see it, when we come together as a tribe, it's like I'm looking at this bottle of Life here, and I'm not going to plug Life, even though many of you know Life. All right. I'm looking at this bottle here. You see the front of the label. I see the back of the label. Somebody sees the side of it. We're able to see what it is and what it says from all different perspectives. Even though I can only see this perspective, you see the logo on the front. Now you can tell me what you see from your perspective. I can tell you what I see from my perspective.
Right.
So when we come together as a tribe, this is what we do. We share each other's perspectives, and we put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Right.
But we're not tapping into some kind of higher frequency.
No.
Because we are the higher frequency.
Exactly.
Tapping into anything, in my humble opinion, as an organic consciousness is actually tapping into a lower frequency.
Right.
And
when you tap into that collective.
Here was the first big revelation for me, is that a higher consciousness being is not going to tell you what to do or tell you anything like that. A higher consciousness being, or what I have seen, is that they manifest as beings sometimes because that's the best way to see them in the ayahuasca realm. They teach you how to unlock the power from yourself.
Right.
They don't point to themselves or some other beings as being the higher powers or the ascended ones, as the blue avians were saying over and over again, or the Palladians, or any of that. They teach you how to be that higher power.
Right. Anything that I've ever encountered in the ayahuasca realm that is asking me to defer to it is a negative being. I see it as a negative being that's usually a byproduct of something inside of my subconscious or something inside of my conscious mind that is negative and inherently negative, and that I know is inherently negative and that I need to deal with. And what people are doing is they're attributing, an angel spoke to me about my throat chakra not being opened enough, when in reality you actually speak too much. But in your ayahuasca experience, you encountered this, this entity that, attacked you by your throat chakra. Well, no, what's really happening is you're misusing your voice. You're not speaking truth, or you're doing something that is inherently wrong. Using your voice, using your words. You're hurting someone, or you're doing something wrong. And instead of seeing and recognizing, oh, that's something within myself, that's the problem with seeing everything as being attributable to some other being in the sky or in another dimension, or all of that. When you're looking at the chakra system as being this legitimate thing, then suddenly, yes, you are subject, and you have to defer to all these other beings because of this hardware that's been installed of the human consciousness. But it is hardware, and it's just as much hardware as the brain itself. I agree with you 100% on that. I don't think that the original consciousness had these attachments. I think throughout the time stream where the virus took over more and more and more of humans and wanted more and more energy, it convinced humanity to let these be installed to a certain degree, so that with the hopes of achieving higher consciousness or experiencing reality a lot deeper. Apparently, for some people, the idea that your throat chakra is what allows you to have a voice is like, it gives them permission to speak somehow, and to me that doesn't.
Well, it gives
that's
them
not my reality.
To speak through you.
Right, exactly. That's not my reality. My reality is I always had permission to speak.
Think about this.
It's my everything.
I think that a lot of people have run into some of these New Agers who they speak in one way, and then they will turn on a dime.
Right.
And when they turn on that dime, they will spew out some venomous poison.
Hateful stuff.
And they'll do it in a way to where it's insulting to me. I remember there was this host on TFR, and as it turned out, they had a cult down in South America, and I didn't know very much about this, and I got rid of them as soon as I didn't like their vibe, but they were friends with some of our friends who I really resonate with. I'm not going to mention names. If they're in the chat room and want to mention their names, feel free to. However, our friends went down there to this cult, and they realized that it was a cult. And I was speaking to this host about their technical problems. And my friends who were down there were actually in the room as I was speaking to them on the computer. And they said, look how I'm going to be able to manipulate him here. And they start typing. And my reply was, look, I'm not a new age bullshit artist. Right. I drink ayahuasca. I drink ayahuasca in the pyramid.
Yeah.
This isn't going to work on me.
Yeah,
but the message was, oh, my lovely Chris, lots of blessings to you and this and that and blah, 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 blah.
Love
and,
light.
all that. And I was like, look, I'm the real deal. That's not going to work with me, okay? Get your fucking audio together or get off the station. Yeah. One or the other. And they were shocked. And my friend came back and he said, yeah, I was in the room while they were doing that, and you should have heard the shit they were talking about how they're going to manipulate you and this and that and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, like watch this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't work for us. Yeah,
I saw it firsthand. I mean, I didn't see it firsthand, but I experienced it firsthand, and then I heard about what was going on in the background. And they were all the love and light and infinite wisdom, and we're sharing the truth here, and we're vibrating with each other, and the consciousness and this and that and all the buzzwords. And it was so disingenuous. Now, I'm not saying that everybody is out there. I'm not saying that everybody is by any means whatsoever. But I have a big bone to pick with the new cage. Because as I said before, you mess with somebody's spirituality, that's crossing a line.
Right, it is.
A major line.
Big time.
You scam people out of money. That happens all the time. You scam people out of their own consciousness. You scam people out of their own spirituality. You scam people out of their own ascension for the purpose of making profit or even for control or energy harvesting. And you've crossed a line that taps into my ancient soul.
Yeah.
And my ancient soul, as one of the creator beings of this matrix, gets very, very, very upset about these virus-infected NPCs that are walking around, virus-infected programs that are out there feeding upon people. Because I feel compassion, not only for the virus-infected NPC, but also for the NPCs that are being harvested. And it is a travesty. And it also, I don't mean to go on, but it also brings a sense of responsibility. And I don't want this to sound egotistical or anything like that, but I think there's a lot of people in the chat room who feel the same way, that we were part of making this machine. So we're responsible for the suffering. We're responsible for the energy harvesting. We're responsible for the vampires. We're responsible for a lot of stuff that's gone on in here. And that's the reason why we descended, came down into this matrix to fix what was wrong, expose what was wrong, elevate the consciousness in the manner to where they can escape this energy harvesting and this vampirism. And that's why it hits us so deeply on a soul level. And we have a sense of responsibility where a normal person would not have this sense of responsibility.
Right.
But it hits with a very deep level of responsibility and duty.
Right. It does. And with that in mind, I just found out something really shocking. Chakra in Sanskrit, you know how yoga means yoke, chakra means wheel. To the wheel, you have wheels, yoke wheels built inside of you, and people are trying to tell you to tap into the yoke wheels that produce energy and let that energy be expanded upon. Flow out freely.
So it can be harvested.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than energizing you.
These are yoke wheels.
So it's very possible that the Kundalini energy is a good energy that you can tap into.
For yours.
It's possible that the chakra system also is an energy system that you can utilize within yourself. Yeah. However, these are meant to energize you. And I think more so NPCs.
Right.
They're not meant to have loops left open to where others can come in and feed and manipulate. And that's my biggest problem. Nobody is teaching this.
Right.
The CIA knows this, though.
Yeah.
The CIA has it right in their documents.
I see these as like energy outlets on a wall. If you want somebody to create energy for the machine, you just tap into whatever chakra they're weakest at. If you have somebody that's weak to...
It's like tapping into your neighbor's cable.
Yeah, that's kind of like what this is, except worse. Because it takes what you're energetically or astrologically weakened against, such as sex. Let's say somebody has sex with strangers and stuff like that, and they have like almost like an addiction to it, but it's not an addiction. It's more like, just they know it's not good for their energy, but they do it anyway. That's that chakra, that sacral chakra, being tapped into and harvested by whatever virus this is that put these in the first place. I think this is disgusting. This is just as bad as the Jesus yoke thing.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. On that note, I'd like to take a quick break.
Yeah.
I know you wanted to get into the lamp versus laser. I also want to get into how the energies are manifest.
Let's do that.
According to the CIA, how they manifest reality based on manipulating the collective consciousness, how you can manifest reality, again, coming straight from the CIA documents, about how you can manifest reality within your own sphere and how you can take things to the next level and understand, number one, how to use these energies. Well, let me just take a step back. Number one, what these energies truly are. Number two, how you can utilize them for your own journey. And number three, how you can protect yourself from being manipulated and being fed upon.
Right.
You are not a battery. You are consciousness. You are a sovereign, organic consciousness. You are a creator being.
You're your own being.
And you need to understand that.
Yeah.
And you will understand that by the end of this broadcast. So, on that note, let's take a quick break. We might cut it here. If we do, the rest of the show is going to be on Patreon, patreon.com/BTV Tribe. Everybody listening live, stay tuned because we're going to go through the full show right here on Beyond the Veil Live. We will be right back. We skipped a big part, and I wish I would have put this in the beginning. I think I might edit this portion out here to be in the free section because this goes along with what we were talking about earlier. So forgive us for skipping around.
Yeah.
But we completely missed, because I just paraphrased this. I wasn't planning on reading the document itself because we've already done this.
Yeah, we already have.
But Transcendental Meditation. On the other hand, Transcendental Meditation works in a distinctly different fashion. It is this technique, intense and protracted, single-minded concentration of the process of drawing energy upon the spinal cord, ultimately results in what appears to be creation of acoustical standing waves in the cerebral ventricles, which are then conducted by the gray matter in the cerebellum. So it's got the figures talking about all of that. And it's funny, there's the Baphomet right there. Mm-hmm. You see the Baphomet right there? Right in the middle?
Yep, right in the middle
there. We were just talking about the Baphomet just a minute ago. Mm-hmm. Where are we skipping to? As a result, according to Bentov, these waves will stimulate and eventually polarize the cortex in such a way that it will tend to conduct a signal along the homunculus, starting from the toes and on upwards. The Bentov biomedical model, as described in the book, etc., Kundalini psychosis,
there it is.
Transcendence states that standing acoustic waves are the result of altered rhythms of heart sounds, which are occasioned by prolonged practice of meditation, and which set up sympathetic vibrations in the walls of the fluid-filled cavities, which comprises the third and later can you read that? Because I'm having a hard time seeing, because it's so far away from me on the screen.
Yes.
on my right.
Let me.
This is on page 5.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. Kundalini psychosis. You can see that.
So Kundalini psychosis, or transcendence, states that the standing acoustical waves are the result of the altered rhythm of heart sounds, which are occasioned by prolonged practice of meditation, and which set up sympathetic vibrations in the walls of the fluid-filled cavities, which comprise the third and lateral ventricles of the brain. So you have these parts of the brain that are. It's kind of like how an ultrasound uses the echo of the fluid bouncing off of the sound to create a picture. And that's kind of what this is doing. In addition, according to Bentov, the states of bliss described by those whose Kundalini symptoms have completed the full loop along the hemispheres.
This is what we were talking about
here.
This is why I'm going to cut the first part and then I'm going to cut to this part for the free archive, because this was the whole point of the show.
Right. The states of bliss described by those whose Kundalini symptoms have completed the full loop along the hemispheres may be explained as a self-stimulation of the pleasure centers in the brain caused by the circulation of a current along the sensory cortex. Bentov also notes, quote, that most of the described symptoms start on the left side of the body, means that it is mostly a development occurring in the right hemisphere of the brain. Although normally a period of meditation involving intense concentration and practice for 5 years or some is required to bring up the Kundalini, quote unquote, Bentov states that exposure to mechanical or acoustical vibrations in the range of 4 to 7 hertz cycles per second for protracted periods may achieve the same effect. Bentov cites as an example of, quote, repeated riding in a car whose suspension and seat combination produce that range of vibrations, or being exposed for long periods of time to these frequencies caused, for instance, by an air conditioning duct. He also notes that, quote, the cumulative effect of these vibrations may be able to trigger a spontaneous physio-kundalini sequence in susceptible people who have a particularly sensitive nervous system. So if you have a particularly sensitive nervous system, it can start this kundalini activation. And I keep reading about Kundalini Awakening, and you know, Kundalini rising and that kind of thing. But they don't really tell you, unless you're reading documents like this, that you need to close that loop, because it's all about closing that loop and making sure that that energy isn't leaking out of these chakras, especially out the top, because that's what they all are saying is let it shoot out of you like a blooming flower. No, it's that Foramen Magnum is the serpent eating its own tail, and you're supposed to regenerate and regenerate and regenerate and become stronger and more aware of yourself and aware of the processes of your body as this is going on, not be so out of control of what's happening to your body that, I mean, you're in bliss 1 minute and then you're in agony the next. That's not a Kundalini awakening to me. To me, that sounds like the chakra points are being manipulated for you to feel a certain way in the hopes of harvesting energy from you.
Well, what I'm taking out of this is that you can actually create physical damage.
Yeah. Oh, seriously.
By practicing Kundalini
the wrong
incorrectly.
Way. Yeah. Psychosis.
And 99.99999% of Kundalini practitioners out there are not teaching people how to close the loop.
Right. I agree with you.
And that is what is most important.
Right. That's the whole point of the Kundalini thing, is to make sure that loop is closed, because if it's not, then that's where if you're not protecting yourself and making sure that the energy loop is staying in, then that energy will actually leak out and start feeding. I hate to call it an entity, but it's some kind of entity that feeds upon energy harvested by human beings especially, and that energy can be utilized by you to harness your reality and turn it into what you want it to be. However, so many people are letting that energy just shoot out the top, or ooze out of these chakra centers, these wheels that they're yoked to, quote unquote, in their body, because that's what it means. Chakra means wheel, yoga means yoke. So you've got these yoke wheels that are turning, and if you're not in complete control of the energy flow going through all of them, then they can be utilized against you, or you can hurt yourself very badly. You can hurt yourself very, very badly, and in many different ways, not just psychosis and brain damage, but also physical damage. I think that if you can they're saying that you can actually destroy tumors utilizing this method. Well, if you can destroy tumors, then you sure as heck can make tumors.
That is very true. And for the
hurt
sake
yourself.
of our Patreons, I'm going to go ahead and cut it here real quick and take a quick break.
Good deal.
We're going to get into a little bit more right on the other side because I still have one more idea that I want to go over. Sorry to the Patreons that this show's been kind of like, one topic and then the other, but I completely forgot to read that first part at the beginning of the show.
Oh, so, yeah, even though I sent you the pictures.
Yeah, I know. I apologize. But we'll be right back. We were talking about ayahuasca demons. So let's talk about some real ayahuasca demons, the real deal here. Mm-hmm. We'll be right back. On that note, I also wanted to ask the BTV tribe if we can all come together and send some healing energy to Trish R. Mm-hmm. Now, Trish R has been practicing a lot of these meditation, transcendental meditation, Kundalini, things like that. And it's very, very, very interesting to see somebody from our tribe who has done this, worked with Transcendental Meditation and Kundalini practitioners who at the very beginning we said are not doing it correctly.
Right.
Not because it's not necessarily because they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah, they're not doing it nefariously.
But it's because they're doing it the way they were taught.
Right.
The CIA knows the right way to do it. Mm-hmm. The loops have to be closed.
Right.
And ever since Trish has been doing this, she's been experiencing a very, very, very strange health situation. It's an invisible illness. It's something that she can't figure out. She said, well, I've been suffering. I asked her, how are you experiencing any pain symptoms? She said, well, I have been suffering on various mysterious illnesses for the past 2 years. Why do you ask? Mm-hmm. Are you thinking that my mysterious illnesses are caused by this faulty practice? That's an interesting thought. She goes on to mention that I only do vocal toning for chakras so that I make sure to invert it back. I'm Googling right now, and you can see in Indian practices the spiral back. Mm-hmm. However, in the New Age stuff, there is no spiral back.
Yeah. They have to
that is an interesting
back.
Observation, Trish, and thank you for that because I never picked up on that myself.
Thank you so much.
Tom sent a super chat. I completely missed that. Tom, you are the man. He's always sending awesome super chats. Thank you, Tom, so much. I hope we get a chance to meet sometime and have a drink together. You've just been part of the tribe for so long, brother.
Oh, yeah.
Trish says, so did I get lost in
did it get lost in translation
on purpose, disinformation, half-truths, or to create that energy leak? Considering the fact that the CIA is aware of this and they're aware of the dangers of keeping the loop open, I would say that there are nefarious elements who have purposefully trained Kundalini practitioners to keep the loop open. Now, does that mean that the person you've been working with had that nefarious agenda? No. He could have just he or she could have been very well mistrained. Right. And you're right. There is a dynamic there where if you look up the Hindu practices of yoga, you'll see the loop completed.
They're different, yeah.
But as I put on the screen earlier,
the New Age likes to keep that open and make that energy go out, correct? Up and out.
Kundalini meditation, yeah. I'm going to put up a couple of pictures here. And, it helps if you put energy flow.
Yeah, energy flow is a good way to get them to describe it in that way.
I had a great picture earlier on the screen. I don't know if I still have it here somewhere. No, I don't think I don't. I don't think I do.
I'll find one.
I do have a video of somebody flipping their cat off here, though.
What the hell?
Oh, this is the picture here.
Okay.
So, Kundalini Awakening. This is from Brian Brazoria Yoga. Mm-hmm. So, this is a Kundalini practitioner here, self-proclaimed Kundalini practitioner. Kundalini Awakening. Life is completely unpredictable and kind of sudden. Spiritual crisis can distress us. The Unpunished mentioned the concept of Kundalini, which stands for circular.
Mm-hmm. Circular.
That's interesting that the word Kundalini, I didn't know this. I'm learning this for the first time. It stands for the word circular. However, as you can tell, the energy doesn't go circular. It just goes straight up. And I mean, I guess you can see the circular energy going here. So perhaps, there is a closing of the loop there. However,
I think that's more the protective bubble we talk about, where we put the bubble around ourselves.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really, that can, what's interesting about that bubble, and I wanted to bring this up a few days ago and I completely forgot, and I'm glad that we're talking about this now because it gives me a chance to. That bubble cannot protect you from yourself. The bubble, the protective energy bubble you put up around yourself, it can protect you against people outside, but it fails a lot of the time in keeping you protected from yourself and things you do to your own energy, things that you allow into your field. The bubble can't protect you from that. If you're going to allow it to leach off of any of these chakra points, then that's you, and you have to take the responsibility for that, and then correct that by sealing up these portals. I mean, it's kind of like sealing up the portals that we were talking about last year and the year before. You seal up these portals.
That's pretty interesting. Here's another one here. Sexual energy and Kundalini meditation. These New Agers are really big on sexual energy, and they're really big on having their practitioners hold their sexual energy until they get into their space. And to me, that seems manipulative.
That's
like if I was to tell you,
sweetie,
I'm going to teach you Kundalini meditation. I need you to hold your orgasms for 20 days before you come see me. You're going to be
extremely manipulative.
Yearning for an orgasm by the time you see me.
Yeah, that's not fair.
But you see this is all going outwards.
Yeah, it's like, how did I tell you to control your orgasms?
There is no loop. There is no closing of the loop. It's just energy just being projected outwards.
And just,
sexual energy and Kundalini meditation is a type of meditative technique designed to tap into your sexual energy and capacity for love. While sexual meditation techniques can often end, the goal of meditation can widely vary. They are essentially aimed at directing and controlling our own thoughts so we can learn about ourselves, increase concentration, and relax. With sexual energy Kundalini meditation, the focus is simply on the sexual and loving energy, also known as pure desire. I do kind of resonate with that, though, because I do feel that, I'm glad to see some, and I wouldn't call these New Age practitioners. These are just, people. I like to see tapping into desire. I like to see tapping into the things that make us feel good in this matrix. Now, when it's used to manipulate us, take Disney, for example, hiding all kinds of images, penises and sexual images in the. I remember I went to Disneyland with somebody, and it was me and a friend, and we were rolling, we were candy flipping, and my sister was there, my mother was there, my sister was doing some kind of dance thing. And my girlfriend, we were sitting there watching one of the shows, and it was all these girls, and they were dancing, and they were dancing with skirts, but they were doing these dances where they weren't wearing panties, but their crotches were revealed as they were dancing. And she was like, "Oh yeah, that's
a Disney movie."
No. It's a live performance.
Oh, a live performance. Yeah.
And she goes, "That's for the daddies."
That's for the daddies. Yep.
And I was thinking to myself, there really should be some kind of strip clubs where you can go and have like the Disney princesses do like lap dances for you. I think that would be a great business model, because after the daddies have been looking at the Disney princesses all day, they're going to want to go blow off some steam afterwards.
Oh man. They're going to get so many guys in trouble with their family.
I'm horrible. But you see, look at this, the Kundalini energy just going up and not closing the loop. You see that time and time again. And even the word Kundalini being a loop in and of itself, a lot of people miss that. So there are probably some practitioners who are practicing it correctly. I'm seeing another representation of Kundalini here. I want to be completely fair.
Yeah, me too.
Let's take a look at this representation here. This looks like a loop. It looks like a closing of a loop. It's not just output of energy. So I don't want to paintbrush all Kundalini practitioners, but I do want to warn people about the importance of closing those loops. And this isn't based on Cherie and Chris's ayahuasca experiences, even though, I mean, that's where the foundation of it is. This is based off of CIA documents. And I think when you base it off of CIA documents, you can pretty much take that to the bank.
Right.
You know, especially since they've hid it and they've removed the link, and you got to go to the Wayback Machine to actually find the actual link. We kiss the one you love right now. You never know the last time it's going to be. Thank you very much for joining us. Total duration of this show for anybody watching on YouTube is 3 hours and 56 minutes. You are probably getting a very condensed version of it. And we took a bunch of awesome callers.
Yes, we did.
We talked more about that CIA
awesome.
document. We talked about manifesting reality, how the CIA talks about it. Not how we talk about it, but how the CIA talks about it. You guys got the Kundalini portion of it, but there is so much more. So don't forget to go to patreon.com/BTV Tribe. Get the full show. It's $3. That's it. For an entire month, and you're gonna love it. It's great. And believe me, I know Patreon. Nobody knows Patreon better than I do, and we have the best Patreon out there. Kiss the one you love right now. You know when the last time is gonna be, and we'll see you even further
beyond the veil.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.
Thank you. Hey everyone, Chris Gio here. Just wanted to remind you that if you're watching on YouTube, you're probably getting a condensed version of the show. A link is going to pop up here on the left, taking you straight to patreon.com/BTV Tribe, where you can get the full shows. It's as little as $3 a month. And the reason is it helps us to overcome the YouTube censorship, the shadow banning, and also stay in touch with our BTV Tribe. See you there at Patreon. Love ya.